Hello everyone, it's Dove again. So in this video I am going to show you how I make easy tuna noodle casserole on the stovetop. Normally it's made in the oven, but I am cheating and doing it just on my single electric burner here. And I use all organic ingredients, and I get this macaroni and cheese from Kroger, and it's organic. It has the little packet that's already, it's already a cheese spread. It's not the powder or anything. And then this is just a bowl of leftover organic peas that I had from a different dinner. And this is a can of Wild Selections tuna. And so it's a really good brand, fair fisherman and all that kind of good stuff. And even though it has a pull tab, I still use my safety can opener here because this thing does not leave any sharp edges, and when you do the pull tab you obviously have that sharp edge, so I still use my safety can opener for that. And then the amount of water that they require on this, as you know, if you've ever made this, where's the instructions? They're somewhere down here. Yeah, they want you to use 5 to 6 cups of water, and that's just for one box. And I'm making 2 boxes here, so that would be like 10 to 12 cups of water that they want you to use. And I am actually using probably about 3 to 4 cups for both boxes. And I'm doing that because I can, because you actually don't need all that water as long as you're being very attentive and you're keeping it stirred and everything. You don't need that much water to cook pasta, and I actually think that's a huge waste. They tell you to use that much so that there's plenty of room for the pasta to be boiling around and everything. But if you're sitting there and you're actually watching it and keeping an eye on it, you can keep it stirred enough so that it's never sticking to the bottom, and it's never a problem. So when you go to drain the water, there's very little water wastage. And as a nomad, I think that's a really big deal. You don't want to be wasting a lot of water. And if you don't need 12 cups of water, why would you use that? So I've got my burner on maximum. I just turned it on. And I don't salt the water right now, because when you put salt in a pot of cold water, it just goes to the bottom and it can actually pit your cookware, whether you're using ceramic coated like this or stainless steel or whatever. If the salt goes down to the bottom and it just sits there, it will start to form little pits in your cookware. And so I don't salt the water just yet. It does help it come up to a boil faster, but I just have to have a little bit more patience because I value my cookware, and so I don't want to do that to it. But I will add some salt to it here in a little bit, and I'll show you that when I do that. And so for right now, I just turn it up on the maximum, and I put the lid on to help conserve the heat in there. And this is an infrared electric heater or electric burner, and so it's a flat plate. It looks like an infrared burner, but it's not. It's kind of the same, but it's cheaper, and you don't have to have any special kind of cookware to use this burner. I can use my glass pots on it and anything else. I don't have to have any special cookware for this burner. And this, I think this was only like $20 or $25 for this burner. So I think it was a really good deal compared to the infrared ones. Alright, I will get back to you here in a bit. Hold on. Alright, so my water is boiling here. And so I am going to open my boxes of mac and cheese, and I'm going to add the pasta to it. Let's see if I can get you turned around here. Alright, oh yeah, that's going hard. And see, it'll come to a boil without adding the salt. You don't have to have the salt in there to get it to come to a boil. You just have to have a little bit more patience and time. And see, this mac and cheese, it's not like the normal stuff that comes with the powdered mixture that you have to add milk and butter to. This is the already made up cheese, kind of like Velveeta shells and cheese. And so I used 2 boxes of these. It's me and my son eating. And so I have to make 2 boxes. He could actually eat all of this by himself, truth be told, because, well, he's a teenager. And so he can eat a lot more than I can. And so after I add it, I go ahead and I stir it in, because it's going to want to stick to the bottom right now. Right now it's literally sticking to the bottom, even though this is a ceramic coated pot. It's literally sticking to the bottom. And so right when you dump it in, don't just walk away. Like, I hate to point fingers, but my ex-husband has a really bad habit of dumping pasta in and then just literally walking away from it, and that's not a good idea. And so just to keep it from sticking, I'm stirring this up really good. And now that the pasta is sitting there and it's forming a barrier, now I will add my salt. And I just use a white sea salt. It's very, very, very white, and it has no minerals in it. I don't use my pink Himalayan sea salt when I'm cooking pasta, because the extra minerals in it will definitely pit your cookware. And so I use the whitest, purest sea salt that I can get, and I buy it from saltworks.com. And that way there's no minerals in it other than the sodium. And that was too much. And see, I like to pour it into the cap, because if I get too much, it's not going into my you're not going to be able to see how much is there. But if I were to just sprinkle this right into the pan, if I got too much, I can't take it away. And so I like to just, there is a clump in there, you can't tell, but there's a clump in there, but it's alright. I'll just dump a little bit more out. But yeah, you can't take it away if you add too much. So that's why I like to pour it into the lid first, or take a spoon and do that. But now when I pour it in here, I can actually just let it sit there and dissolve on top of the pasta. And so I'm not going to stir that in right away, because I don't want that salt to touch the bottom of the pot. I want it to dissolve fully before, you know, before it has a chance to go down there and start pitting the pot there. And so it was boiling pretty good until I took the lid off. And then of course when you take the lid off, it stops boiling. But then once I added that pasta in there and stirred it up, that made it so that the pasta is not sticking to the bottom. And so when I put the salt in there, I'm still good to go for a few minutes. Well, not a few minutes, but like 30 seconds to a minute. But now that it's hot and dissolved, I know that that salt isn't going to go down there and pit it. And so now I'm going to start stirring it again. And the pasta is sticking. There's resistance there because it's sticking. And this is a non-stick pot. This is a ceramic coated pot. But it's pretty old. And so I just have to be really careful not to let the pasta just sit down there and stick. Especially when you're using so very little water. Like, most people would look at that and go, oh my God, what are you doing? Because that's what I used to say, what are you doing? But it's actually okay. Just keep a really close eye on it and keep stirring it. And once you put this lid back on it, when the salt is in there, it's going to want to start boiling over. If you've ever made pasta, you'll know that when you put the lid on, and you leave it alone, that will start boiling over. And so you have to be very, very, very watchful. And if you don't, you're just going to make a huge mess, because the water will just boil right out of there. And so I'm just very watchful here in the beginning stages. And then once it comes to a boil, I take the lid and I put it offset so that it's not boiling over. But for right now, to get it to a boil, I put the lid on straight, just like that. And I'll leave it to boil. And so I'll get back to you here in a minute. It won't take very long. Hold on. Alright guys, look. I'm making a volcano here. Oh yeah. That's what happens. I caught it just in time. That's what happens. It will start making a volcano, and if I would have let that go, it would have erupted like Mount Vesuvius. So here we go. That was as much as it could take. So I've got the lid off, and I just hold it over the pot so that the extra water goes down into the pot. And it's sticking just a little bit. Yeah, it's sticking. And it has been, let's see, how many minutes has it been? It has been, oh, well, I didn't write down what time it was when I added the pasta. It's been 20 minutes since I turned on the water. So it's probably been like 3 minutes since I added the pasta. And now it's not sticking anymore. But now when I put the lid back on, I'll keep it at an angle like that so that it won't boil over anymore. Because now it's hot enough that it's going to come back up to a simmer here. Obviously it's not simmering now because I took the lid off, but it won't take long for that to come back up. And I don't want that lid to be on there because I don't want it to boil over. So I will get back to you here in a minute. Alright guys, so it has been about 12 minutes here and my pasta is done. And I just wanted to show you how very little water is left. Look at that. It doesn't even look possible, but there is water left in there. And this has grown and swollen to, you know, twice its size as pasta normally does. And it looks like that would not even work, but it's working fine. It's done. And there is very, very little water. You see how much? Oh, no, it's fogging up. Oh no. Okay, well hopefully that will clear out here soon. Hopefully you saw how little water is left in there. And so I'm not wasting hardly any water here. Let me put you back down. Oh, wait, I've got this bowl here. This is what I'm going to drain the water into. I'm going to act like a nomad, like I don't have, you know, a sink to drain any water into. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. That was my son calling to ask where his dinner was. He couldn't smell anything because I'm out here in the garage cooking it. Normally he can smell it cooking because I'm in the house cooking it. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn off the burner. And I'm going to drain this water into this bowl here. There's not very much water here at all. And normally if I was not adding the peas, I would leave just a little bit of this water, because when you put the cheese sauce in there, it's just about perfect, but once the macaroni and cheese starts to cool off, it gets a little bit thick. And so I don't mind having a little bit of extra water sitting here in the pan with this pasta. But because I'm using some leftover peas this time, that has a little bit of liquid in there. And so I'm just gonna cut the top off of this cheese packet and squeeze it on out. And I don't have a time-lapse thing, so now I just need to talk to you. But I twist it. Sorry. I start at the bottom and I just twist it down because I don't want to waste anything. This stuff is pretty expensive, and so I make sure to get all of that out of there, as much as possible at least. And so because I'm making 2 boxes at once, I have to add both of the packets. And I just start at the bottom there, and I just start pushing it out. This is such a cheater recipe. I feel ashamed to even be showing you guys because this is so easy and it's such a cheater recipe that I feel like I'm cheating. I really am cheating. But I don't mind. It's quick and it's easy, and my son really likes it. So, whatever. But I get all that out of there that I can. And then you just start stirring it in. And it will immediately start melting. But if I want to help it along and get it to melt a little bit faster, I'll put the lid on it. There's the water that I drained out. Look how little water there is. I don't like to waste water, and you know, cooking is no different than anything else. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to let that cheese start melting. And the peas here, these are leftover from the other night, and that's the water that came in the can of peas. That is too much water, and so what I'm going to do is drain some of that off onto this bowl here. I'm going to act like a nomad, where I have limited resources and places to drain water. Because, well, when you're out boondocking, you don't want to just be dumping a lot of water out onto the land. And so I'm just going to drain most of this off. And then before I add it, I want to make sure that this is getting nice and melty in here. And it is. And I'm going to have to turn the burner back on. Uh-oh. I just lost a piece of macaroni. I don't know if you saw that. It just went flying. And so now I will add the peas. And because these are cold, I had them in the refrigerator, I might have to turn the burner back on. Especially when I add the tuna, because I want it to heat through. And the phone ringing, I don't know if I told you or not, but that was my son. Yeah, I did tell you that. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm distracted if you can't tell. And so, I'll open this can of tuna here. You probably won't be able to see it very well. But you just set that right on the rim. And you just go down in revolutions. I start on one side of the tab, and then I do a full revolution, and then when it's done, I back it off, and the lid comes off just like that, with that little claw thing there. And this was packed in oil, which I don't normally buy, but I was buying any kind of tuna I could pre-Fukushima, and that was one of the cans that I bought. And so I'm just going to drain that oil right into that bowl here. And then if I was at a campsite, I would just take this bowl at least 100 feet away from my campsite, if not further. And I would dump this water so that I was not attracting animals right to my rig. So you don't ever want to attract bears or coyotes or rats or mice or anything to your rig. So you don't want to dump your waste, your food waste, right next to where you're parked, because then the critters would just love to come and share what you have to offer. And I didn't bring a fork out here. Normally I would have a fork so that I could flake this tuna, but I did not bring a fork out here, and I don't have one handy, and I'm not going to stop the filming just for that. And so what I can do is just take my spatula and just break it up in here. And because this is now cooling off, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on. Not on max, but just, you know, on 3. And just the actual stirring will break up that tuna. You kind of got to poke at it a little bit. And see, this is dry already. I'm already feeling like I need to add some milk or whatever. But if you don't have milk, you can just add some of that liquid back into it, and it will loosen it up a little bit. And when you turn the heat off of this, it will automatically start thickening up as it cools off. That's the way it is with all macaroni and cheese, all gravy. That's just how it works when you're cooking. And so I'm going to take some of this and add it back in there, because when you turn the heat back on, you need more moisture to make up for that. And I don't like really dry macaroni and cheese. I am very opposed to dry macaroni and cheese. And so you just add more liquid as you see fit. If you don't mind it being dry, then don't worry about it. But see, that wasn't even enough. So I'm going to take a little bit more, because when the burner's on and it's cooking off the liquid, you can cook it off as much as you want. But if it's too dry, you have to keep adding to it. That's just about right. This is a good reason to save your liquid until you're all done, because you can always add it back in, and you don't have to depend on adding milk or cream or half and half to it. So that looks pretty good. It's pretty loose, but it's going to thicken up. And I know that seems strange that I would want to keep adding liquid, but I do, because I've done this enough to know how much it thickens up in the end. And so you can always just add more liquid at the end after you turn off the flame or your burner. If you find it's tightening up too much, you can add more liquid then, but I don't like to wait until then, because if you wait until the end and you add the liquid, then it's already cooled off. And you want to actually serve this warm, of course. And so doing it ahead of time, adding the extra liquid ahead of time, will make it so that you don't have to look at that. I've added it all back into it. But that means I can keep the heat on, and I can heat this all the way through, and those cold peas will get nice and warm. The tuna was room temperature, of course, but it will also get nice and warm. So that's it. And I'll probably add some salt and pepper. But that's it. And yeah, my son could eat this whole pan all by himself, but now he has to share it with his mama. because I have to eat too. Alright guys, that's it. And then when I'm, in between time, I just put my spatula in a bowl to try to keep everything clean. I still am kind of messy here, but I'll just wipe it up as I go. Alright guys, that's it for tonight. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye.